This is Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. What if there was one single thing that we could do in the Inland Empire that would help local business, make families healthier, increase the income of nearly 100,000 residents, increase property values, and then bolster our local economy? Economists who've been looking at our region say there actually is one thing that could change things pretty remarkably. Thousands and thousands of Inland Empire residents have gone to college and then dropped out, sometimes shortly before graduation. But a plethora of new programs that help adults with childcare, grants, food, and academic assistance are beginning to bring those who left back to college. Now, business and economics leaders are looking optimistically at what might happen if thousands of locals finally earned a degree and increased their household income. Today, we're talking with two people leading the charge to get those adults with some or much college back to finish. Annette Webb is the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at the University of California, Riverside Extension. She tells us about adult students returning now to get the 4-year degree they wanted all along. She joins us later in the show. A mother who left school years ago decided that the best way to educate her autistic child was to finish her own education first. She describes the struggles and rewards that she's found along the way. But first, we welcome Dr. Emma Diaz. As director for the Inland Adult Education Consortium, she serves as a liaison between adult schools, district offices, community colleges, and community service agencies to help in the redesign of adult education in the region. Thanks for taking our call, Dr. Diaz.
Yes, no, thank you for the invitation. I look forward to our dialogue.
First of all, let's start with what interested you in working with adult learners.
You know, that's a very good question, Lacey. And I'm going to say that, I myself am an adult learner returning to school. So I've done a degree in each one of the decades of my adult life. And these programs are very personal to me. In my family, my mother was an ESL student I got to see her going to school every evening, to take ESL courses when I was a child. And my sister-in-law just recently returned to earn her GED. Because I'm an adult learner myself, I would say I understand the struggles personally that these students go through. And so I think that makes me a better administrator and to do my job better because I can identify where those barriers are and then help programmatically, how to help these individuals. And so I think that allows me to be more compassionate. But at the same time, I find it very rewarding because these are individuals, I'm going to say that they're the hardest working people that I know. They are very grateful for these opportunities to return to school and to better their careers or transition into something different. So I'm going to say they inspire me, actually.
Emma, could you describe for us a little bit about the California Adult Education Program and how it supports adult education in the inland region?
Absolutely, Lacey. That's a very good question. And I'm going to say a good place to start because unraveling what has happened in the last 7 years in the state of California is really interesting. So as we call it CAEP, CAEP spelled, the California Adult Education Program started back with the initial phase in 2015. And in 2016, we're now going into our 6th year of implementing state legislation, which is AB 104. And what this did is this restructured the delivery of adult education across the state of California. And so what the state has done is they're using a collective impact model to deliver services to adults in the region. And so they're bringing together adult education folks, which are at the K-12 sites, community colleges, individuals from the County Office of Ed, and other community partners and people who offer programs to adults. They've brought us all into the room together to create a transition and a partnership between us to be able to take adults who finish programs initially in adult ed and get them to post-secondary, get them the education they need. And so this work, we are dedicated to only working with adults 18 and over. And again, the state has given us 7 program areas where we can spend our funding, 7 objectives. And how we work with those is really about creating those transitional pathways for adults So that's really the main goal of the program. Now, what are these programs? Your question was specific to how it supports adult learners. This offers programs that are tuition free for individuals who may not have completed a high school diploma in the past, or don't have enough credits to finish a diploma. So maybe they want to study to do an equivalent program, which is an example is the GED or the high set, and they take an exam instead of being able to work on a diploma. Other programs we work with are, ESL or citizenship, and some, short-term certificates that can help people get back into the workforce. So what the whole, task of the consortium work is that we all work together to be able to make this change happen for the region so that adults are connected to the services that they need so that they can finish their educational goals.
Yeah. While our team was researching for this program, we were hearing about and reading about adult learners and returning adults, adult students, and non traditional students. So, could you help all of us understand the differences between those?
Sure. The one commonality I'll say is that the word adult shows up quite a bit. And so for us, what that means is our funding that we receive from the state, it is restricted to an adult, which is anyone 18 and over. And that is actually a very good thing because years back, adult ed was decimated in the funding back in 2008. So this has rebuilt adult education and protected those funds for those individuals who are 18 and over. So I'll start with just defining an adult. Then some of the other terms that you shared were non-traditional, and so I guess by defining that as, a traditional pathway is typically the student we see who is, 17 or 18 years old, graduates from high school, and they enter college directly. There is no gap year. They go straight in to be able to start their college education career. A non-traditional individual is someone who is a little older, typically 24 to 25 years old, coming back to a college if they started, or maybe being a new student. So that's a non-traditional student that might already have a family or has a different set of barriers that they need to overcome in order to progress on their educational goals. So that's a non-traditional student.
Gotcha.
A returning student can be someone who may have started a program and left for some reason. Maybe they moved and they didn't finish. And so now they are returning to finish or returning to change careers. I would say an adult student, you had that term in there, is someone currently enrolled in a program. In order to be defined as a student, they're currently enrolled in a program such as like an adult school at a community college. And so they're beginning a program or in a program that has a structure with the beginning and an ending where they ideally earn some kind of a certificate or a degree. So they're a student.
Sure. I am personally a college dropout who returned as a more grown-up adult. My own
Excellent.
experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. My own experience was that it was a lot easier for me to zoom in and focus on my studies when I wasn't busy daydreaming, chit-chatting, or when I was not in love with someone in my class. So
this is true.
yeah, that brings me to the point. There are a lot of students like yourself and myself that started college years ago, but then left. Let's talk about that.
GIA has done some great data mining, and when they shared, I believe what they identified as 24% of individuals in the Inland Empire who started some college and didn't finish. I thought that was quite a big number of individuals that we have out there. So I recently was able to finish my doctorate degree even during the pandemic, and my study was on, college educated immigrants coming into the U.S. And so, most of them had finished the degree or had some college in their country of origin coming here. So they had a high, skill set. And yet these are the individuals that, some of them were the engineers that were driving an Uber, And so there's a term called brain waste that's used across the state where it's the underutilization of skill. And I think that plays into the question that you're asking is, are there a lot? GIA identified 24% of our population in the Inland Empire who didn't finish a degree. On top of that is those that have finished a degree, possibly, and are not applying the degree to where they work. So I think there's a lot of underutilization of skill and a mismatch of jobs with skill level for individuals in the Inland Empire. There are those sectors for employment, and I think we could do a better job of highlighting the amount of skill that is in our area.
Yeah.
And then, I know one of the goals GIA has is to bring some of these individuals back to be able to complete the degree with the hope that will, advance them in their career. And sometimes it has to do maybe with that, socioeconomic piece of, I need to pay the rent this month. So I don't have in my mind going back to school to finishing a degree that can potentially pay me double what I make now. But right now I need to do this, and so I don't know. I don't have the answer yet, the holy grail of, how do we get them to come back? Because I think that's really important. And I think that's the purpose of our group with GIA is to be able to look at all of this data and say, in the past, we haven't reached out to this population, and how do we best do it?
It sounds like if we could get some of that 25% or most of them to go back to college, we could really have a positive effect on the economics of this area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. It's, what would be the impact of having even half of that, 12 or 13%, what would the Inland Empire look like, and how different would it be if we can boost those individuals, within their own employment or to get new employment and, bring up their standard of living.
So what are some of the top reasons that they do stop attending? Before you answer that, we need to take a quick break. Our guest is Dr. Emma Diaz, the director of the Inland Adult Education Consortium. And we're talking about the effort to bring Inland Empire college dropouts back to college to get that degree. More in a moment. I'm Lacey Kendall, and this is Education Insight. Welcome back to Education Insight. Today, we're talking about a major effort to get inland residents with some college back to get their degree. Economists, countywide studies, and state officials alike say that it would do great things for hundreds of thousands of local residents and the economics of our whole region. Dr. Emma Diaz is the director of the Inland Adult Education Consortium, and she's leading that charge to slow our dropout rate and make local colleges easier to come back to. She joins us by phone. Emma, before the break, I asked what the top reasons are that students drop out of college. What are your thoughts on that?
Like you said, both of us are returning adult learners and we know some of the challenges, but I said, what else are you, seeing out there? And they summed it up with one phrase and they said, life happens. And that's what happens with adults. Life happens where there's changes in employment. They have a new schedule now and maybe they can't make it to school anymore. There's changes in their schedules. Sometimes family needs, maybe childcare issues. I know right now across the state and maybe across the nation, there are issues with, having enough childcare providers, so that really is an issue because as parents, they have children to care for. Another thing that I'll say is also culture and cultural mindset. And too many times those self-defeating thoughts, I'll say, such as what I mentioned before is, I'm too old to be in school or I shouldn't be doing this. I have children to care for. I have parents to care for. So all of those cultural, sometimes cultural, being also, I'm a woman, I shouldn't be studying business. And we hear these comments. So this is, the self-defeating thoughts sometimes. Many times it can be economic and they need to work and cannot come to school. Sometimes school can be a distraction from solving family issues. And that was one that specifically one of my counselors mentioned because they think, I should be dedicating myself, more to my family and school becomes a distraction. So those were some. Another is one that I previously mentioned also is that they don't see the long-term value in finishing education. They're many times in survival mode of, I need to pay the rent now. I need food on my table now. And so education takes that back seat sometimes. And so they do stop attending because there are other issues that are more pressing to them. And so that's how our counselors summed up, life happens. All of these different things can contribute, to a student making a decision to stop attending a program.
So there are two things that I'm drawing from our conversation here today. One is that if this great many of folks in the inland region of Southern California were to go back, often they could double the income that they're making, and surely it could greatly increase the economics of our region. So what would you say to somebody who's listening to our program here today and saying, oh, dropped out of college. That's me. That's me. Well, how can people like that overcome those hurdles?
We have a lot of support for individuals because we know that they go through this. And one of them is to actually reach out and get that support. I know we have academic counselors, on the campus to work with you on setting up a student education plan and so forth. But we have a lot of services that can really help. I think many times as a student, we're afraid to say that we don't know or that we need help.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the hurdle itself. I was actually just in a meeting right before this where somebody was saying they had returned and were taking classes at night to finish their AA. And she is well into her late 50s. And I said, that's excellent. Congratulations. And then I said, if you need anything, that I can help you with, let me know. And she says, oh, no. I'm going to do this on my own and I'm going to get straight A's. And it made me think of, it's good to be proud of what you do, but you don't want to be too proud that you don't reach out for help or get support services that you might need.
Sure.
And I think that's one. It could be very lonely. I'm going to say being the only person maybe in your household that is enrolled in college. So that itself, too, becomes a hurdle because you feel very isolated and alone. So I say, join some of those organizations on campus. That really helps. But really, don't be too proud to feel that you don't need support or that you could do this on your own. Any change in life, we're going to have some form of, resistance to it. And you do need those supports, from a campus where you could talk to an academic counselor. We also have mental health support through our health, system on the campus. All of these things are there to be able to help. So for anyone who is listening and says, I've been contemplating going back to school, we have a lot of support services to get you reintegrated and help you, along the way and reach that educational goal.
Yeah. Consider this program a sign.
Yes. The fact that you're listening today, you're already on the right track.
Yeah. If you just joined us, this is Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall, and we're joined today by Dr. Emma Diaz. She is the director of the California Adult Education Program at the Inland Adult Education Consortium, which is part of the San Bernardino Community College District. So what do you think? Are our Inland Empire colleges and universities currently doing well at accommodating the educational goals, not just those, but also the learning styles of adult students who are returning? What do you think?
I'm going to say, there's always room for improvement. But from what I see today, I think we're doing well enough that we have a presence in the community. And in our title is community college because we belong to the community. And, that's really what our goal is to be able to do is to serve the populations. And so I'm going to say, we do have many services, as I was just saying before. Unfortunately, some students just don't even know about them or think that they can participate or think that they don't qualify for whatever reason. But I always encourage them, to come and talk to counselors, come and talk to people on the campus because we can accommodate their needs. And what are some of those ways that we accommodate? One is through offering non-credit courses. These are courses that are tuition free. They don't get college credit, but it's a good opportunity to kind of get your feet wet and say, am I ready to come back to college? So that's one way of coming back and saying, what, I need to get back into the college world, but maybe I'm not ready to take on a full-time, student education plan of all these courses. So I'm going to say, come back to our places, our facilities. And another thing that we do to be able to accommodate our population, we know this is not a one-size-fits-all community. because we know what we previously talked about, the different types of adult learners and returning adults and non-traditional, we have many different services that can accommodate based on what they need. They have orientation or sessions in Spanish if language is a barrier. We offer summer bridge programs to get students onto the college campus and give them a credit level class, see what it's like. We have EOPS programs. We have first year experience programs. We're offering right now credit level classes in counseling at our adult school sites. So I'm going to say, we're trying to accommodate all these different, needs of the community by saying, if you're a first year student, we have a first year experience program. If what you need is some kind of counseling, we have that. If you need some help with going through the orientation or filling out your FOBSA, we have all of those supports. So I'm going to say is, yes, we have these supports, but we do need for students to come and be willing to be a part of those programs. And that's how I'm going to say is yes, there's always room for improvement. I know San Bernardino Valley College is actually undergoing some reconstruction, and they're renovating some buildings to bring in student services all into one area. And so that's something that's happening now. In 2 to 3 years, we'll have a brand new building that will house all of the different services students need in just one area.
Great. I was surprised to hear, and it's a great thing that you bring up all these ancillary offerings, that there are a number of wraparound supports available, things like employment advice, food, housing support, and others. Could you comment on that? I thought that was surprising.
Yes, I'm going to say, San Bernardino County is the largest county geographically in the U.S. So it's going to have some challenges, and just us trying to reach out to every area of the county. I mean, we go all the way up to the Nevada border and the Arizona border. I mean, it's huge. So it does have some challenges, but I do think that our wraparound services try its best to be able to capture these students. And so in addition to those programs I just mentioned right now, the non-credit being, tuition free, partnering with our adult ed sites that are K-12 sponsored, I'll say through their K-12 districts, they offer as well, tuition free programs, with the exception of some of the career programs or CT that might have a fee here and there. Tuition is free. So that's one of the biggest wraparound services I'll say is that we can, bring on students that have issues, financially, socioeconomically, or that have, questions or are in the process of working on residency documentation. They don't ask for a lot of this kind of documentation. So this really opens it up to any individual really interested in being in a program or a classroom. Additionally, we also, Valley College does have a food pantry. So colleges right now saw with the pandemic, there was a huge need. And many of them have the food pantries on campus as well as doing, the food drives. As well as, like I said, we connect individuals. Our counselors work, one-on-one with each one because we know it's not a one-size-fits-all. You asked about specifically also housing support or others. So with employment advice, our academic counselors are they're there to inform students on academics and specifically programs at the college. What we are doing right now is we are partnering with the San Bernardino Workforce Board, and we're in the process of having some of their AJCC or, American Job Center individuals to be on site at our adult ed schools so that if someone in the community needs to come and talk to them about getting a job, then those services would be there for them.
Yeah.
And that's something new because typically colleges are like, you come here, we provide the education, but then you're kind of on your own getting a job. So this is something different where we are trying to partner and bring that person on site so students have access to that.
As we come to a close here, Emma, could you tell us once again, so those who need to hear it might, where should adults begin if they're interested in going back to school?
We have several locations, and throughout the region, I know this is a large population. We do have 9 adult ed consortia, 5 in San Bernardino County and 4 in Riverside County. You can go pretty much most of the districts, K-12 districts do have an adult ed school that they're functioning with. So like for me, example of my consortium, we have Colton Adult School, Redlands Adult School, Rialto Adult School, San Bernardino City, which is rebranded as Inland Career Education Center, and Yucaipa Adult School. So we have all these adult schools that are run through their respective districts, as well as they do throughout the entire Inland Empire. I know everyone is doing something a little different. We do a mailer, as well as there is a state level website that you can go to, and it's caladulted.org. And in there is a section where you can go to as a student. And if you type in your zip code, it tells you all of the different adult schools in your area that offer programs that you're looking for. And again, these are all state sponsored, so they're tuition free with the exception of some of those career courses that might have a fee, like nursing or welding, where they have fees. But everything else, meaning ESL courses, citizenship courses, those for diplomas and the equivalent, which is a GED or a high set, are tuition free. And so that's the state level. Locally, you will have an adult school through your area, and then the community college for which the community that you live in. So any or all of those could definitely get you in the door to where you need to be. And always go through a counselor, because I always say counselors are a great place to start. They could do an initial assessment with you of where you are, what your goals are, and then get you connected to the right program for you.
Once again, we're speaking today with Dr. Emma Diaz, the director of the California Adult Education Program at the Inland Adult Education Consortium, part of the San Bernardino Community College District. Today, we're talking about supporting Inland Empire adult learners and getting those who stopped short of graduating back to college. Emma, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Lacey. I appreciate the opportunity.
Coming up on Education Insight, a Riverside mom who returned to college shares her difficulties and her recent successes. But first, we meet Annette Webb. As the Dean of Academic Affairs at the University of California, Riverside, her job is to respond to the educational needs of non-traditional learners, both domestic and international. And she's overseeing efforts there to bring adult dropouts back and help them succeed once they return. Annette, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah. Could you start by telling us a little bit about the UCR extension and how it supports adult education in the Inland Empire?
Sure. First, let me give you some background on extensions.
Okay.
University extensions are situated within the University of California system, the world's leading public research university system. And UC Riverside is one of 10 UC campuses. 9 of those 10 campuses have university extensions. The extension divisions are designated as professional, continuing, and online education providers. And their mission is to provide professional development, academic advancement, and personal achievement programs for international and domestic learners. Think about that 60-year curriculum and lifelong learning mission. So UCR Extension offers students an opportunity to advance their existing careers or to start new ones. And they can continue in lifelong learning. They can set and achieve new goals. And we do this by providing professional certificates, workshops, conferences, and courses across a variety of industries like teacher education, business and management, law and criminal justice, engineering, technology, and such. And at UCR Extension, we're currently offering around 75 professional certificates. Our student population that we serve is around 10,000 per year. And those include international students from 45 different countries. 96% of the students served by UCR Extension are adult learners, and 75% of those live or work in the Inland Empire, and 70% are working full-time. So we really are pleased that we can cater to adult learners by providing customized and tailored programs to meet their specific needs, especially in those high-need, low socioeconomic, and underserved areas of the Inland Empire. Yeah. And our courses, they're delivered, flexible modalities like in-person, hybrid, online, and dual mode instruction. And we tailor our scheduling so that they're not always offered in the traditional 10-week kind of scheduling. We hold courses on the weekends, in the evenings. We do intensives, and we work with partners for custom delivery at their site if they'd like.
I'm told that having adult learners at UCR changes the campus experience for even the younger learners. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Adult learners really bring a depth and richness to the campus because they bring their lived experiences with them. And this is, to me, a great benefit to the entire campus community. Adult students bring their work and their life experiences into the classroom, and that gives an opportunity to make discussions way more relevant. So, adult students tend to be very career focused, family focused. They can often be juggling multiple priorities. And most importantly, adult students demonstrate resilience because they've had to overcome and bounce back from or push through, life's inevitable challenges. And I can tell you, I know a lot about this because I was a returning adult transfer student at Cal
Mm-hmm.
State San Bernardino at one time. And I was working full time. I was a mom of 2 young children, and I was taking courses to try to complete my bachelor's degree. So I know the challenges and barriers that adult students can face. And being a working student, adult student, however, you're able to take what you're learning and apply it immediately to your job. So
Sure.
that's a benefit to it.
Looking at the adults that you have been seeing enroll in recent years, Annette, what degrees and certificates do you believe have been the most desirable to those folks?
Yeah, UCR, the most popular undergraduate majors are usually in the social sciences, business, and biological and biomedical science areas. And in the professional certificate space, those offered by UCR Extension, project management, accounting, human resources management, early childhood education, and paralegal are our top enrollers.
It sounds like UCR is making great strides for helping adults come back to earn their degrees. But I'd like you to comment on a broader scale. How do we make all universities in inland Southern California more adult ready? Where do you think they're doing well? And where do some of these universities and colleges need improvements?
I see this as an opportune time for higher education institutions to think about how their curriculum is aligned with real world experiences. And that's where professional and continuing education units like UCR Extension can really shine. This is an area where universities and colleges can intentionally and strategically partner with their continuing ed divisions. And, another area where schools are doing really well is how they're thoughtfully building out student support centers. We have things like the Veterans Resource Center, the Women's Resource Center, and I know at UCR, we've established peer mentor networks where students are matched with mentors who are there to offer guidance, to help them acclimate to life in college, to give the assistance with navigating the challenges and adjusting to all of the different things that students face when attending college.
Yeah. With all these modifications that you're talking about to make the educational experience an easier one for these adult students, let's just assume for a minute that as a region, we're successful in attracting a large volume of these adults back to post secondary education in the next few years to finish their degrees. Do we have the institutional capacity and seats locally to be able to handle that should they come back?
Yeah, well, bottleneck courses or those courses where demand exceeds capacity have been a consistent conversation in community college and university for years.
Mm.
This is a big problem because bottlenecks have the potential to delay students' time to graduation. However, I will say that this is a challenge that higher ed leaders across the system are acutely aware of, and they're working strategically to address. Organizations like Growing Inland Achievement are especially helpful because they bring leaders together to talk about a shared vision and to work on tactical plans to help students in our region and really address these kinds of challenges.
Annette, there's a lot of folks listening and they're thinking, I've taken some college credits and then stopped going to school before graduation. And now it's been, say, 10 years or 10 plus years since they were in school. The question those folks want to know is, do those courses still count towards a degree when they go back? And can you explain how that is evaluated and how it works for them? Think about that for a quick minute as we take a break. We're talking about new efforts and opportunities that are bringing Inland Empire dropouts back to college. I'm Lacey Kendall. More education insight in a moment.
Support provided by the College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino. Art and design, communication, English, liberal studies, music, philosophy, theater, world languages and literature. The College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino. We define the future.
Welcome back to Education Insight. Even before the pandemic, economists were suggesting that getting the thousands of adults back who had finished some college would have a notable positive impact on the region as a whole. Aside from all that good, San Bernardino County Community Indicators and a Public Policy Institute of California report both show that this is a need-to-act moment if we're going to have enough college graduates to meet the need past 2030. It will also help us to avoid problems like industry automation that takes more jobs from those with no college education. On the phone with us is Annette Webb. She's the Dean of Academic Affairs at the University of California, Riverside. Before the break, we were talking about those who want to come back to college, but it's been a while, and they don't know if the courses and credits they've earned will even count. Annette, could you tell us how that works?
Sure. This is a little bit complicated, and it's one of those areas that tends to differ by college or university.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are three main factors to consider when making decisions about whether or not courses will count towards a degree. They're recency, relevancy, and accreditation. And recency refers to how long it's been since a course was completed. Relevancy is about how much of what was learned in that course taken 10 years ago is still accurate and relevant in that specific field of study. And then the third factor, accreditation, is also very important. Colleges and universities operate through continuous improvement frameworks that are aligned to accreditation standards. They're always striving to increase academic quality and student outcomes. But accreditation requirements can change periodically, and that changes the way degree and certificate programs are designed and delivered. So this can cause a downstream effect on whether or not courses can still count towards a particular program. Mm-hmm. So I can give you an example. General education or breadth requirement courses are usually accepted. But in subject areas like technology or the sciences, where we see advancements and innovations at a faster pace, those older courses may be less relevant over time. And the decision-making bodies at the universities looking at those transcripts are the ones that are going to evaluate that. Yeah. One example where the accreditation factor came into play for a program at UCR Extension was with the paralegal professional certificate. The American Bar Association is the accrediting body, and they required the program to be delivered 100% in person. But during the pandemic, the ABA changed their policy to allow programs to be delivered fully online, thus changing the way that we could offer the courses and also changing the available audience for the program as well. So we have to stay tuned on whether or not that will continue to be a policy or if it will revert back. But ultimately, it's important for students to connect with admission advisors and student success coaches to get guidance early on in their decision-making about which college to attend. The advisors are highly trained and they examine the transcripts and they can give them the right recommendations for pathways so that they can achieve their goals.
A lot of adults who are thinking about going back to school admittedly say they've got a lot of fear and anxiety about doing that. Do you have any tips for someone listening that is pondering the whole idea?
Yeah, your question makes me immediately think about Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset and how having a growth mindset is essential for success. And Dweck says that growth mindset creates a passion for learning and that human qualities like intelligence and creativity can be cultivated through effort and deliberate practice. And I love this because it makes fear and anxiety take a back seat to the potential of the future.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone thinking about going back to school should spend some time envisioning their long-term goals and then setting short-term goals that will be like stepping stones towards that long-term vision that they have. I also think it's really important to have a trusted network of family, friends, or community members that they can go to for advice and wise counsel. It's especially important to connect early on with the people who are knowledgeable about navigating the higher education system because it can be so complex and can cause frustrations if you're not sure what the next step is. Again, this is where higher ed super talented academic advisors and success coaches come into the picture.
So, Annette, what would you say an adult who's considering going back to college, either for one of those micro credentials or to finally finish their 4-year degree at a 4-year university such as UCR, where should they start the process? How does that begin?
Well, depending on the educational goal, students who are interested in obtaining a professional certificate or micro-credential, they can connect to one of the UCR Extension student success coaches. The coaches can talk to them about their goals and facilitate their reentry into higher education. And they can even connect them with financial resources like those resources provided by the Veterans Administration or the Workforce Development Board. So if you go to the UCR Extension website, you can click on live chat and you can get started talking with the coach right away. For students who may have stopped out of UCR or who have completed transfer admissions courses through community college, there's a different process for those. The UCR registrar's webpage has all the information a student needs to know regarding readmissions. And the UCR undergraduate admissions webpage has everything a transfer student needs to know about how to get started. But if you can't find those specific web pages, just land on any UCR page and there's a ScottyBot live chat support that will pop up. And you can ask Scotty any question you have and you'll be directed to the right place for support.
Yeah. If you just joined us, we've been speaking with Annette Webb. She is the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at the University of California, Riverside Extension. We're talking today on Education Insight about supporting Inland Empire adult learners and more specifically, getting dropouts back to college to graduate. Annette, thank you so much for taking time to spend with us today and answer these questions.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
You're listening to Education Insight. Linda Shafiq Awad left her education in 2009 to focus on a new family. Then her child was diagnosed with autism. In 2013, she says she determined that the path to educating her child would have to begin with finishing her own education. By 2014, she was taking extension courses. She received her Bachelor of Science degree soon after, and this year, just as she turned 30, Linda earned her master's degree in special education. First of all, congratulations, Linda. Could you tell us about that first decision to return? Were you nervous or fearful about going back to school?
So my reason and motivation to go back to school was my son. He turned 11 last week, and at the age of 3, he was diagnosed with autism. And back then, I honestly had no clue and knew nothing about this developmental disorder that he was diagnosed with. So it kind of left me confused, like, why did this happen? What did I, as a mom, I wondered, was it something I did wrong? So I signed up for the early childhood development class at Riverside County Office of Education at the time and went on to receive a certificate of training in childcare occupations that was transferable to UCR Extension. And once I got in UCR Extension, I took more childhood development courses, got my child development associate teaching permit, and just kept moving forward from there until I was able to get my bachelor's degree and recently just got my master's degree.
Wow. Has your experience returning to school as an adult impacted your life in ways that you expected and your career path as well?
It's definitely impacted my career path. As a kid, I always wanted to be a pediatrician, but the way things turned out, I ended up getting my bachelor's in childhood development and adolescence. And then my master's degree was in special education with an emphasis on applied behavior analysis. So I still kind of get to work with kiddos in a way, but more in an educational field versus a medical setting. And it's definitely been very helpful because I get to use what I've learned at home with my own kids, so not just in a classroom.
Yeah. Linda, some folks fear that it will be intimidating or scary to return to school. Did you have fears? And if so, how did you overcome those?
Yes, I did. And it definitely is an intimidating decision. There's a lot of factors you need to think of when returning to school. For me, as a mom, that's my priority. My kids came first, and I obviously wanted to be present for their lives and not having to leave them in the care of a stranger or a daycare facility. So it was definitely hard, but I think that was the hardest step, is deciding to go back. Once you're in a program, it goes by so fast and you don't even realize how fast the time goes. And then by the time you're done, you're like, what was I waiting for?
Yeah.
So it's definitely a hard decision to take. And for me, what helped me kind of get over it was, it's always great to have a great support system. So having family and friends in your life who motivate you and encourage you to go back to school. And it was definitely helpful to rely on them in tough times. They helped me get through it.
Our guests today on the show, Linda, have said that a lot of people are returning to college again after breaking away, and they're finding unexpected surprises and benefits that they didn't anticipate. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yes. For me, it was honestly the year COVID started. I think COVID has been unexpected for a lot of people. And I think if I haven't gone back to school, gotten my degree, I wouldn't have been able to support my kids academically at home while they were completing school virtually instead of in person. So it's definitely helped keep my kids on track and not regress like some other kids who have, because of due to lack of resources and being in school in person. And I was definitely grateful that I had the knowledge and the skills and resources needed to kind of help support my kids at home. So when they returned to school, they weren't severely impacted by this pandemic.
Linda, knowing what you know now, what would you tell other people about the value of returning to college?
As a parent, I honestly wish I knew everything I knew now before having my kids. Not that I know, we never know for sure if it would have changed everything 100% per se, but I definitely think it would have made a greater impact on their development and their growth. Yes, it's been wonderful. I get to use it at home and it's definitely helped my kids grow. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't help but wonder, what if I knew what I was doing now when I first had my kids and I could have started this when they were even younger?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something I wish I knew back then, of how important it is as a parent to be educated for the sake of your own kids.
Yeah.
Another piece of advice I guess I would say to others is, it's okay to ask for help. Everybody needs help sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's good to have a support system, family, friends, whoever is there in your life, and it will help you get through tough times. Because that was something I struggled with. I had a hard time asking and reaching out to others when I needed help. Sometimes I take too much than what I can handle. And it was learning that it was okay to ask for help and get others support when needed and not try to take everything and do everything on my own.
Linda, I got to ask, how's your son doing?
He's doing very great. He just turned 11 last week. And he's doing so well. He's come a long way compared to when we first started. He's doing so well, and I'm really proud of him and everything he's accomplished so far. Can't wait to see how much more he can learn and do as he gets older.
Linda, Shafiq, Awad, thank you so much for taking the time to take our phone call and tell us a little bit about your back to college experience. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for this amazing opportunity.
That's our show for this month. In the coming episodes, we explore how important teenagers perceive an education to be. A recent study asked our Inland Empire teens that very question. And what is the real return on your education today? A leading expert will break it down for us. These are the stories we're working on. I hope you'll join us for the next Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor, and our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
Alyssa Silva is our production assistant, and Lacey Kendall is your host.
Support is provided by Growing Inland Achievement, working together for inland education and economic success.
And by College Futures Foundation.
Do you have questions or suggestions for the future topics we should be covering?
Write to us at educationinsight.org.
Join us again next time for
Education Insight.